Welcome everyone to today's podcast. I'm super excited to be here. Today we're going to talk transitions on the Engineer Whisperer podcast. And today I have super awesome and special guest, Maaike. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Andrea. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, we made it worked out with all the time zone
Exactly.
differences. So this is super special. So as we start, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Maaike Steinebach. I'm originally from the Netherlands, but I've been based in Hong Kong for the last 14 years. I'm married. I have three children who have all been part of this wonderful journey of life with me. And I recently transitioned from a 25-year career in financial services and C-suite roles in financial services, and most recently as the CEO of Visa for Hong Kong and Macau, into being an entrepreneur. I set up my own company called Femtech Future, and I focus on supporting startups that are in the femtech space with their business development. But I also work very much with corporates to see what they can be doing to support women's health in the workplace. And ideally, by collaborating with some of the amazing femtech companies that are active in this space, not just in Asia, but globally. So that's what I do.
Well, I'm sure we're going to hear more about it as we are going to talk about your transition. So, I'm going to ask you the opening question and then we'll go somewhere. What
Sure.
was the most challenging transition in your life so far?
Oh, well, there have been a few. I think on a personal level, just becoming a parent has been a massive transition, I think, for all of us that have children. I hadn't realized that from day one that you become a parent, actually, you have a responsibility of another person for life. So my children are 20, 18, and 16. And for the longest time, I thought that by the time they would be 18, they would no longer be under my responsibility. But I feel and live and care and love for them every day. And I think as a mother in particular, you also worry about them for the duration of your life. But in my professional life, I would say there have been two transitions that have been a very big impact on my life. Firstly, the decision to kind of move out of the Netherlands and start an international career. And secondly, the decision to kind of quit my corporate career and to become an entrepreneur. And not just become an entrepreneur, but actually follow my heart, or what feels like following my heart and finding my purpose for the first time in my life, at the age of 52. Now, I feel very blessed that, at 52, I really realized that my passion was really in the space of supporting women on their health journey and making sure that we can find ways to give women access to much needed healthcare that the current system cannot provide, particularly for women that are in Asia, in low income countries where a lot of the healthcare is inaccessible, unavailable, or if it is available, it's quite often unaffordable. So I know I talk about three transitions, but actually all of them have been significant. The last one has really been one where I found that my life journey has finally taken me to where I needed to be from an individual purpose perspective. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Well, let's start with the first one. Which transition was the first one? Was it your international career, moving from Netherlands to Asia?
Yes, yes. So I think what was interesting is that I was actually raised in Saudi Arabia, and that kind of I always blame my parents in a good way, for kind of injecting me with what we say in what is said in German is like a Reisefieber. So basically getting this my blood pumping for meeting other people, exploring different cultures, and traveling. So
But what
when
was what was their background? Just give us a little bit more context.
Oh, so my father was an engineer and he was asked to move to Saudi Arabia in 1974 for his company to help build infrastructure, roads, airports. So I was 4 years old at the time, and I had two younger brothers. And for my parents, this was very, very unique because this was very, this wasn't a time when people traveled very far. If you went on holiday, you might go to Germany or to Spain or Italy, but you never really traveled outside. So this was a very big step for my parents. They were both also very, very young. Um, but what was wonderful is that we arrived in this new country where everything was different. So the weather was different, the culture was different, the clothing that people wore was different, the
Yes.
language was different. But what was so wonderful about it is that for all of us, over time, it felt so natural to be in a different environment. And I think it as I mentioned earlier, it created this feeling of actually you can thrive anywhere and you can do anything as long as you kind of understand and interact and communicate in whatever way, in a non-verbal way, if
Yeah.
necessary, with the surroundings that you are in. So when we finally moved back to the Netherlands, when I had to go to high school and I went to study at the university, for me, it was very obvious from the start that eventually I would spend some of my time living and working abroad. And when I studied economics, and I had an opportunity to do, in the Netherlands, you have to do a final thesis for your study. I had an opportunity to do a short project in South Africa. And that was kind of my second big kind of international assignment. And even though I was very young, I went there on my own. It was considered to be relatively unsafe at the time. I felt so empowered and so liberated to kind of be in a different culture and make it my own and understand how it thrived, that when I came back, I was pretty sure that my next part of life would be in another location. Um, Now, I started at the coffee, cocoa, dairy, and sugar desk, which we call the cappuccino desk. And basically, I provided working capital or money to commodity traders that were selling their products as middlemen to the big fast-moving consumer good companies. And I was able to travel a lot to Brazil, South America, West Africa, so Ivory Coast, where most of the cocoa comes from, Cameroon, Togo, Ghana, and then to the Far East, because actually coffee and cocoa only grows along the equator because of the weather. And when
And you
I went
traveled alone again? So your travels were
So I
as
traveled
or
with a
yeah.
colleague, quite often with a colleague, but yeah, I also traveled alone. So I, at one point in time in my career, there was a coup d'etat in Ivory Coast, and probably just thinking an age perspective, 26, 27, something like this. Uh, Ivory Coast was considered the most politically stable country in Africa at the time. And for the first time, there had been a coup d'etat. So everybody was so calm about it. It was like, well, it can't really be a whole thing. But obviously, we had collateral there, we had clients there. So um, yeah, basically was decided that I was going to go there to check up on how everything was going. And in all fairness, once I was in the country, I was actually with a client, but the whole experience in hindsight was probably completely irresponsible because, there were blockades. The airport was full of soldiers just for me to get in. As you can imagine, right? A
Yes,
26 or 27-year-old
yes,
blonde Dutch woman. We
yes.
were in curfew in our hotel.
But it says a lot about your mindset and about your
Yes.
how you view life.
Yes. And I feel that mindset has really kind of helped me in all the earlier transitions that I mentioned, just on a personal level and on a professional level. Because for me, I feel very comfortable with change. I also feel relatively comfortable with adversity. So I think over time, as you grow older, you realize that whatever adversity you face, at the end of the day, there is always light at the end of the tunnel. It is all part of life, actually. And sometimes some of the challenges that you encounter, um, yeah, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? You just have to go through them to bring yourself to that next level
Yes.
of maturity in your life.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. I love how you say that, that just knowing that what I'm going through right now, it's going to make me stronger and I have to go through it to get to the next level. It already strengthened my mindset of how I'm going through the adversity, as you're saying.
I think as you grow older, you also have more tools in your toolbox to kind of handle that adversity or that change. I think when you're young and you haven't experienced that in a big way, but as you go through multiple changes or transitions or adversities, whatever, not every transition obviously is positive. They all come with some challenges. But I think as you grow, you build capacity and capabilities to cope. And you become more self-aware. You understand kind of what happens physiologically in your body, what happens in your mind, and then you bring yourself to having the tools available to deal with them, whether they are just going out for a run or meditating or doing sports. I mean, there's multiple different things of coping. But yeah, I find that very interesting. And it's one of the reasons why I do what I do now, because I feel very blessed that, at my age that I found my purpose and I know what I want to do. And I have gone through multiple transitions in my life that I can actually deal with whatever is thrown on my path. But I really wish that more, both men and women, would be able to have some of these tools or knowledge or information earlier on in life, so that they can be prepared, have some things in their toolbox, know what to look out for, to be able to deal with some of the adversity that is 100% going to come in their path in some shape or form.
Yes, yes. That I like that. That everybody's gonna go through the fire. You want it or not, you choose it or not, it's gonna happen to you. It's part of life. So, Micah,
Yes,
what was
absolutely.
something challenging for you, or maybe what was the most challenging in all these transitions, and how did you? What
So I
mindset did you
think there
use
were,
to?
yeah, I think if we just talk from a professional perspective, if I talk about adversity and change, I think one of the most difficult things at the time, not anymore, because now I see it as a blessing, but I was made redundant at one point in time in my career. And it came completely unexpected. It came completely out of the blue. I was in a C-suite role and I didn't see it coming. I was maybe a little bit naive to think that if there would be any changes in the company, that somebody would come and have a conversation with me and say, okay, well, we need to make some changes. This is how this is going to impact you. Would you consider another job or moving somewhere else? But that didn't happen. It was literally come into a room and there was somebody from HR. And I was So I was completely shocked. I literally I called my husband. I said, I just got made redundant. Um, and it made me on multiple levels kind of have to deal with something that I'd never done before, which was my own personal ego. Like, huh? Me? Huh? What?
Yeah. Yes.
How? How?
Yes.
But then also with but what do I tell everybody? And it's very interesting when I now see people that I know have been made redundant. Um, I hear that they change the wording. So they're quite embarrassed to say I was made redundant. So it's quite often I've changed my career or I've decided to look for something else. So there is this stigma, which actually whoever is made redundant, there's really nothing that that person could really do about it, right? It's about the organization or about something else that is happening around them. Of course, if they've done something illegal or fraudulent or what have you. But, quite often, if you look particularly in the environment around you, yeah, people get made redundant all the time.
Yes.
And, these days it's even over WhatsApp or, things that I don't understand. But
Yes.
for me, that was a major change for personal reasons, just for, what do I tell people? From a kind of, I was the breadwinner at the time. So I was like, what am I going to do just from a financial perspective? And I really, um, it was really a major impact on my life because this was something that had never happened to me before. Yes, I'd had adversity. Of course, everybody had adversity or difficult times or different challenges, but this was like it hit me in the face very, very hard. Um, and I couldn't, at the time, I couldn't see it as the gift that it was in hindsight. I could only see like, oh my God, now what, now what, now what, now what?
Yes.
So what is interesting is I obviously had heard about the change curve and about the grieving curve. So I kind of started to map, like, where am I? So what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? Um, and to be honest, after I started to sit down and think about it and talk to people about it, and I slowly but surely started to see that this was actually a gift and this was a time for me to think about what it was that I really wanted to do with my life and how I wanted to spend my time. And it gave me time off to think about that. So I was very fortunate to be able to have 4 months off. And it was the first time that actually I came across the term femtech. So we were talking 2018, and Ida Tin, who is a lady from Denmark, she is the founder of the period care tracker Clue. She had just started her company and she was talking to investors and she was trying to give a name for the technology that she had developed, which was kind of the first of its kind. And she called it femtech. So products and services that use technology to support the health and well-being of women. And I thought, oh my God, how amazing would it be if we all had access to this? Because, I was in a C-suite role. By then, I was a mother of three. As a female, you have so many more health issues that you need to deal with. It's so whilst taking care of the kids and running a company and taking care of employees, as well as, being a partner, I was like, I need to do a mammogram. I need to do a pap smear. When do I do this? How do I make time for this? But not just kind of the mandatory screenings, but also the self-care is like, where is my time? And women tend to put each other at the bottom of the Maslow curve. So taking care of the kids, the family, the friends, their partners.
Yeah.
And I realized, like, how wonderful would it be if we could actually do all of this in our own time, our screening, but if we had tools to kind of help us, track our health and well-being and support our own health journey, because I think healthy women are happy women and happy women are healthy women. So it actually um, was a very adverse moment, my redundancy, but it created for me the first spark or seed to kind of
Yes.
think about my future and what I could do for women going forward.
I love how that literally created an opening in your heart, in your mind, in your time, in the space, in the environment to meet that woman and then for you to have that thought. Because maybe before it would have been, even if you would have met her, just like, I'm busy. I'm doing all kinds of things. Like I don't have time for that. But now almost like that excuse was taken away from you. Like I have time
Yes,
now.
yes, exactly. And what I did is, so I had all of a sudden I had this time off. And you were talking earlier just about transition. But what I realized was that I had a few options in this transition. I could actually only go looking for a job, or I could, spend some time feeling sorry for myself and, going on a holiday or sit on a beach or just stay at home and watch Netflix all day. I mean, both of them were very necessary and tempting, I think. But I actually decided to do it in a bit of a structured way. So I said
Tell us.
during the week, I want to spend X amount of time at looking at for new roles. So I'm going to be, job hunting, speaking to headhunters, looking for roles, meeting people that can help me on finding a new job. And then on the other hand, I'm going to spend time on my self-care. So I'm going to make sure that I, book time for the gym, all this stuff that I didn't have time for or didn't make time for before. So I explored yoga, all this kind of stuff. But I also made a list of people that I had always wanted to meet or connect with, that I never had time because of my professional role. And these were people from completely different industries. So to give you an idea, I connected with the convener of TEDx in Hong Kong, just because I was curious. I was like, how did this happen? And you'll be very surprised. At least in Hong Kong, I found it very interesting that if you reach out to people on LinkedIn and you explain what you're trying to do, people are actually quite generous with their time. So I met all these, you know, supposedly random people that were not related to my private life or not part of my professional life, to just also be inspired and learn, and almost like going back to my youth where I was in an environment with completely different people and see what I could learn and understand from them to shape my thinking about what I wanted to do next. So now when I hear people that have been made redundant or people that retire, because I'm also coming at the age where people are starting retirement, most of the time I give them two tips to say, both events, even however hard they may feel, they are really the universe giving you a massive gift. But secondly, your time is precious and finite. So do use it in a way that you kind of optimize all the different things that you want to do, because it's very tempting to feel sorry for yourself and just kind of sit at home, or feel a massive obligation or responsibility to go out and find a job. But actually, there is a great way to kind of connect with people and learn and grow at the same time.
I love that how you, it seems again from the outside in, it seems like a weird option to use the third option that you talked about, but in your world and knowing your strength, that's almost, as you said, going back to the roots, going back to the comfort zone and that curiosity that always
Exactly,
served you well.
exactly. And it's one of my favorite words, curiosity, actually. I think without learning, we die, but without curiosity, we also,
We also,
we can't
uh,
function. You
yes.
kind of slowly die, inward,
Yes,
almost.
yes, yes, I'm with you.
Um,
Yeah, we die inside. Yes, yes. So then it's why just have the body if you're dead inside? Yes.
exactly, exactly.
So so continue. So you were made redundant, then you found
Yeah, so
work,
I made
then
redundant, and then I thought, okay, femtech. So I had been spending my whole career. I was very fortunate. I had parents that were very internationally focused. So when I was like, I want to go, even go to South Africa, they were like, yeah, sure, fine, we will help support you. And then when I met my partner, I was very fortunate for a few things. Firstly, he was equally excited to go and live abroad, but he was also a partner that realized that he was going to be responsible for half of our household. That basically meant the kids if they were going to come, but also just our social life. And then I was very fortunate that I had a male boss because I moved from Amsterdam to London to Singapore. But when I was in London, I was pregnant with my first child. And my male boss basically said to me, like, I have a really good idea. Why don't you move to Singapore, become the regional head there? And I said, are you out of your mind? I'm 5 months pregnant. I could get postnatally depressed. I'm moving to another country, senior role. But anyway, he was very much a male ally at the time, even though the male ally name did not exist there. But he was like, I believe in you. I see you work. You can do it. We will support you. We will be there to help you.
wow.
So I'm very fortunate to have never actually bumped into the glass ceiling. I felt that my whole career had kind of been a rather smooth journey in having so much support along the way that when I turned 40 and I was literally sitting on the 70th floor overlooking the Hong Kong harbor as a CEO, I thought, this is ridiculous. I've been so lucky. I have to start giving back. I have to help more women that are not as lucky. I have to help them with coaching. I have to sponsor them to uplift them into roles so that we get more gender equality and gender equity at the top levels. So that's when kind of my support women journey started. And it really started with how can I kind of get more women in the workplace, in financial services, in senior roles. And it kind of developed as I moved to different companies into getting more women into technology, because it was also a time when innovation was starting to happen and fintech came. And I very quickly realized that whilst financial services was very male heavy, at least at the front office, lots of women in the back office, but in the front office, very male heavy,
Yes.
senior leadership, male heavy, but that technology was even worse. There was kind of like male heavy founders and senior leadership, and then even in the back office is very little women. So started advocacy group for women in tech to kind of start showcasing the amazing women that were active in the technology space in Hong Kong, but also pushing them to become more visible, because I thought we can complain about conferences and panels where there are no women, sorry, or where there is no diversity. But it's also a responsibility of the women to kind of speak up and say, well, hey, I'm here, you can
Yes.
take me. So that then happened. So I really became, in my spare time and as part of my role as a C-suite executive, I became really a very vocal person about female empowerment and women empowerment in the workplace. So when I got made redundant and I came across the term femtech, it almost felt like a natural transition. It was like, okay, well, this is amazing. So I've been trying for 20 years to kind of empower women in the workplace. But if you sit down and think about it, what is the real reason why women don't feel comfortable or at ease or supported in the workplace? It is basically because a lot of the policies and basically the whole infrastructure hasn't been catered around their needs. It was set up by somebody that created it for people. But actually, as we have matured, we are now starting to realize more and more how different men and women are, but particularly how women's physiology is so different than men. So firstly, we have our whole reproductive health infrastructure, but then whether that's your period, whether that's our pregnancy, whether it's menopause that we have to go through, but also we now know that, our brains are completely different. So women are 2 times more prone to depression and mental health issues than men. But actually, you don't see a workplace necessarily put 2 times more effort on supporting women than they put on men. So I felt that there was a real opportunity to see how we could support women by focusing on their health and well-being in the workplace, to actually attract them, to bring the women into the workforce, but also to retain them. And I feel very convinced that actually technology can really play a big role in supporting that movement. Now, that's the good bit. The bad bit is that this was 2018, and this was very early. I mean, Ida Tin had just started her company.
Yes.
There were very little companies active in this space. And even in the workplace, even though we were talking about women in tech, there was nobody ready, but literally nobody ready to talk about menopause or
Yes.
fertility or in the workplace, or start to offer free period care, for example. And actually, when I posted on LinkedIn in 2018, and I'm going to see if I can find the post, I posted like, oh my God, I just found this amazing new term to describe technology to support the health and well-being of women. And literally the comments were from some of the women, and these were women that I held in very high regard, was like, really? Literally, what the F? Why do we need technology to support us? I mean, so I parked the idea. I literally put it in a little pot, see-through pot, glass pot maybe, and I decided to take a little part of my annual bonus and invest it in female-founded or femtech startups. So femtech-focused startups. So I thought, at least, I'm planting a few seeds of maybe what I can do going forward.
Oh,
And
I love
then
it.
I had an amazing opportunity to join Visa, and it was just before COVID, and it was really an amazing technology company to work for. It really ticked a lot of my boxes to kind of move out of financial services into technology, into a very fast-growing space of disruption of payments, but also a global brand, and a brand that is really, really focused on diversity and DEI and supporting women entrepreneurs. So I was very happy to have found that role and to work for that company for almost 5 years. But I think during COVID, what happened to a lot of people, we had more time to reflect about what it is that we wanted to do in
Yes.
life. And for me, even though I had put my idea of femtech in a little bottle somewhere, it kind of, I felt that the cap kept
Yeah.
being hit on, like,
It
open me,
bottled up.
open me, open me, open
Yes.
me.
Yes.
Um, and during COVID, I met some amazing founders. I met a lady called Bryony Cole, who had set up Sextech School, which was like an incubator, a 6 weeks incubator for companies that wanted to create their own product or services in the sexual health and wellness space. And I started talking to her, and I got very excited about the things that she was doing. And then I felt at one point in time, okay, this is, if I don't do it, if I don't make a change now, if I don't make a jump now, partly driven by my insecurity about my age and, my own capabilities. I was like, if I don't do it now, I'm probably going to be too old. People are not going to take me serious. So I have to see if there is something there that I can work on, and whether this is really what my purpose is. So that's why I resigned last year to basically hopefully enter, the next, I wanted to say the final stage of my final transition, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be more along the way. But this was my last transition, at least, from corporate life into entrepreneurship, and to take a deep dive into really following my passion and seeing whether I could support more women in this space, and in the meantime also drive my own ambition of being an entrepreneur in the women's health space.
I can I can
But
hear I can hear the energy and the passion that comes with this journey of transitions that got you here, and how beautifully and how amazing that we humans have this ability to look back and then connect the dots and then understand that nothing was out of the ordinary, that all the things that we thought, like, why am I doing this, and has nothing to do with what I'm doing right now, eventually it did, and it all connected.
yes, and the great thing is, so you spoke earlier about what was what was the hardest thing about the transition. But obviously, when you leave corporate life, you leave a lot of you leave your comfort zone. At least for me, so you get a monthly paycheck, you have a title, you have people that do stuff for you, and everybody said to me like, "Oh my God, it's going to be so hard because you're so accustomed to having this way of working and this way of life." And actually, yes, okay, it bit a little bit the first time when you don't get any money on your bank account. It's like, oh, now it's real.
Yeah.
But I can tell you the satisfaction that it gives me, and a lot of people find that very hard to understand. But for me, it's like, as long as I understand it, that's the most important thing. The feeling that I get every morning when I wake up or when I go to bed or when I talk to people, even like you, or to founders in this space or companies that are active in this space, the way it makes me feel is like no other job or role has ever made me feel. Even though, the novelty of a role, you feel the excitement and the dynamics, but now I really feel that I have found my true purpose and the thing that I really need to do with the rest of my life. And I'm pretty sure there will also be some refinement or some adjustment kind of along the way. But I feel that, through a lot of different ways in life, I've now come to a path that I need to be on. And that feeling is wonderful. And I really hope that everybody at whatever stage in their life finds it, whether you're very young, like my son, who knew very early on he wanted to be a zoologist, and he's followed through on that, to people that are older than I am that are still figuring out what they're doing in life. But I wish everybody that feeling of finding your purpose and what you were meant to do in this very short time on this planet. Now I will be quiet.
Well, what my takeaway is, and that, reflecting on my life, it's not age connected. It's
I
connected to
know.
that feeling that you're
Yes.
talking about. Because I
Yes.
relate. You know it once you find it, and when you get up every morning with that feeling, um, nobody can take that away from you. So
No.
I relate. Well, Micah, we're getting close to the end of the podcast, and you shared a lot of amazing things and definitely got me excited. So I'm sitting here thinking who I can connect you with and how can I help. And
You.
so I hope that others, as they're listening to, will want to reach out to you and connect with you. So, what's the best way to connect with you?
So the easiest way is just to go onto LinkedIn. So my full name, Maaike Steinebach, is on LinkedIn, or my company, Femtech Future, is on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram with Maaike on a Mission. But yeah, I think those are the easiest ways to find me. There is a whole movement, I think, of women that are starting to focus on women's health. It's great to see the World Economic Forum talk about women's health for the first time. So I think there's a lot of material and information available for people that are interested in this space. But if you have any particular questions, just reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, get connected. I think that's
Yes,
I feel that we need to connect and create those hubs and
absolutely.
connection paths. So, Micah, as we close, I want to give you the mic back. Close us out. What do you want to leave us with today?
Well, what I want to leave with today is to say that whilst any transition in life might feel super, super scary, if I'm just a living example of how um, everybody can come out of that transition as a almost like a newborn or a reborn person, please take that away because I know it's very hard when you're going through a challenge in life, but the end of the tunnel, the light of the end of the tunnel is really, really worth going through the transition for. So thank you so much, Andrea, for everything that you do and for giving people like me a voice and a platform to talk about our passions. Really, really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for sitting down with me today, for making this happen. You are an amazing guest, and I hope to have you back again to like part two to in 6 months or a year to find out where are you now, what impact you're making in the world. So again, thank you very much for your time and for being here.
Thank you so much.